I'd like to welcome to Camp Connect Gina Creek. And Gina, again, longtime camp staff member. I suppose that's her, in this realm, her real claim to fame. But you are also, tell us what your job is there at Advent Health.
Yes, thanks so much. I am the executive director of the Leadership Institute at Advent Health, and we have responsibility for all the leadership development programs across our system. And our system touches 10 different states, and we have over 80,000 employees.
That's amazing. And so you're developing, and you mentioned earlier that you're even doing that's leadership development down at the college level, working with collegiates that are coming in. So the whole spectrum. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
You started out in leadership in the camping world. Tell us about where you worked, which camps, what positions you had.
Absolutely. Well, I grew up in Kansas. So my very first, as a camper, I went to Broken Arrow Ranch. And so it was a real full circle moment when I actually got to go back there as a camp counselor. And that's what I did my very first year working at summer camp. And the next year I was girls director at that camp. I had an opportunity a couple years later to also go and work at Laurel Lake Camp in Pennsylvania, see another part of the country. And I worked there for 3 years, 3 summers, 2 as a camp counselor and 1 as girls director. So it was a 5-year investment that was the most impactful thing ever.
Yeah. Camp work is hard. It's intense. You don't do 5 summers just because you want to have fun. What brought you back year after year?
It was the people that I got to work with. I didn't know what to expect that first year. I just went sort of because I didn't have a job lined up and it just felt, like something I could do. By the end of that summer, I realized how deep the relationships were that you could build with your other camp staff. And I also loved that we all got to work really hard together for something that really changed lives. And I don't know how to describe it other than doing work that you love with people that you love and impacting the lives of young kids. It was just awesome.
I will often tell people that camp can get in your blood, and look out because you'll end up being a lifer like me. So, it's great. I remember the very first camp director I worked for. I remember the impact that he had in my life. Talk to me about how you were mentored in leadership at camp.
Well, specifically, I worked for Wendy Eberhardt, and I got to work alongside her for a year when she was one of the directors of our camp. And then she became the head of the whole camp the next year and invited me back. And she is just an amazing leader, and her deep sense of purpose and her ability to articulate a clear vision for why we were doing camp, for what it was all about, and to keep us focused on that. And then when she invited me to become the girls director, she gave me a really great opportunity. At the time, I was starting to explore my passion with leadership development, and I call it, I was dabbling in it and starting to be a hobbyist, if you will.
Yeah.
And she and I would have great long talks about leadership and leadership at camp. And so when we came and we were getting ready to do that, the week before the staff week, before the campers come, so all the girls director, boys director, all the ad staff or whatever you call it came, she asked me if I could lead a couple of leadership workshops for her leadership team that year. And I loved every minute of it. And it's one of those things where you find yourself in a state of flow. You find yourself doing what you were called to do, what you were born to do. And it was just amazing to me looking back that she gave me that opportunity as a 20-something-year-old who had no right to do it other than just a passion that I had inside my heart. And I didn't go straight from that moment into leadership development, but it definitely fanned a flame that had begun. So it's amazing the opportunities that you get at camp that I don't know that anybody at that time would have hired me to teach them a class on leadership, but I still got to sharpen that skill with people who gave me great feedback, and I got a lot better. I wasn't perfect the first time, but it's definitely been contributing to who I am and what I do today.
That's amazing. So a lot of seeds were planted, a lot of really foundational things were shaped in you in those camp years. I mean, looking at where you are now, the work that you're doing, um, how are you shaped at camp, and how are you prepared for what you're doing now? Obviously, all that mentoring, but how did it affect you?
Camp at least it provided for me a safe place to exercise leadership muscles. And I think a lot of times, especially so in my work now, I have a lot of opportunity to talk with college students or recent college graduates. And oftentimes they'll say to me, Gina, I really want to be a leader. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to lead? What impact do you want to have? And you can tell that leadership for them has been a theory, something that they've heard other people talk about, something that they've read about, but they haven't yet experienced it themselves.
Mm.
And there's something about camp that, because there's always so much to do, and there's only so many people that are there to do it. You kind of look around and you say, okay, who's going to step in, and who's going to lead this, who's going to lean in and become the leader in this moment. And camp for me did that. Camp for me was a safe place for me to think about, what kind of leader do I want to be? What kind of culture do I want to create? What kind of experience do I want the people who work for me to have? And I got to experiment a lot. Like, when do you get to experiment with leadership with relatively minimal consequences? I know I shouldn't be saying that to a camp director, but it was a great opportunity to say, ooh, what if I try communicating it in this way and see the response? And what if I tweak it this way and see the response? So it became, I didn't know it at the time, and I may not have described it this way at the time, but looking back, I can see it was almost like going to the gym and working out works your muscles and prepares you for living the healthy life that you're going to live. Camp for me felt like that from a leadership perspective, where I did the heavy lifting and didn't even know that I was doing it until it was done. And now I leverage those same muscles every day, every single day.
Yeah.
If you think negotiating with a 5-year-old over eating their peas when you're only 16 yourself, like, if you don't think that that's a life skill, I'm here to tell you it's a huge life skill. And you will use those kinds of communication, negotiation, all of that. You will use that for the rest of your life, because the random skills that you pick up at camp are differentiators. They just help you to feel like you know what you're going to do in any situation.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, we've got hundreds of people all over the country right now that are thinking about working at camp. They're contemplating, is this going to be for me? There's a lot of voices now that say you ought to be doing things other than camp, whether that's summer classes or going and taking an internship, and all those have value. Why should they choose camp as their summer option?
My saying is that camp people are good people. Wherever you go, wherever you've been, if you run into somebody and you're going through that introduction of, where'd you grow up and where'd you go to school, if there's even a tiny hint that they may have worked at camp, you have found a lifelong partner, a lifelong person, you say, oh, you worked at this camp? What year? And I worked at this camp. And it's almost like it's its own language or culture or whatever you want to say, but camp people are good people. And the reason why, and I feel like I know that because I am a camp person and I wear that really proudly. But I think you choose camp when you know that you have deep things that you want to learn about yourself. Mm. In the same way that getting outside your comfort zone and going to a school that's really far away, or getting outside of your comfort zone and going overseas for a year. All of these things become so formative. And it's when you step into a space where you didn't know you could handle that, and then you handle it, and God uses you and he places you in positions, and you see how he's using you to transform people's lives. And it's indescribable and it's irreplaceable. It's just one of those things that if you're tempted at all, if you're questioning it at all, the answer is to do it. And then you'll know why you were meant to do it. Because if you're doing it, God has a purpose for it and he's making your path clear to you. So you got to do it to find out what
Yeah.
he has in store for you.
That's great, Gina. I think your words are gonna help a lot of people wrestle with that decision, and giving us a lot of reason to say there's value in camp, and it's so formative. It's changed my life. It's changed yours, and I know it can change those that are listening to this today. Thanks for being here, Gina. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your contribution to camp ministry over the years, and what you're doing now to develop new leaders for the future. So God bless all that you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.